They were supposed to be charting stars, not falling from them. The Odyssey wasn't just a ship, it was the future, a gleaming testament to interstellar cooperation, a floating sanctuary built by the hands of 5 species. And now it was burning. Captain Alara Ward clutched the edge of her command console, teeth clenched as alarms screamed around her. "We've lost primary thrusters," shouted someone behind her. Alara didn't look back. "Switch to backups, Quax, I need a solution now." "I am working on it," the alien navigator replied calmly, his green fingers flying across the glowing controls. Quax, son of Dranar, was as serene as a summer lake, and twice as cold. Outside the viewport, the blue-gray planet loomed larger, its gravity a vice around the Odyssey's throat. "Brace for impact," Alara shouted as the stars disappeared behind a curtain of fire. The crash hit like a thunderclap from the gods. Metal shrieked. Systems failed. The Odyssey, once a marvel, tore through Alpha 97's atmosphere like paper through a flame. When it finally struck ground, the Earth groaned beneath it. Then, silence. Alara came to with blood in her mouth and fire in her lungs. Her ears rang. The scent of scorched metal and ozone clung to the air. A heavy beam had collapsed inches from her head. She crawled out of the wreckage, boots crunching over twisted alloy and shattered dreams. "Quax?" she coughed. Nothing. She stumbled over smoking panels and flickering lights, calling again, louder. "Quax!" A shadow stirred under a warped bulkhead. Then he rose, bloodied but upright, his gold-flecked eyes scanning for threats, even as one of his arms hung uselessly at his side. "You live," he said simply. Her breath caught. She hadn't realized how much she'd wanted to hear his voice, dry, logical, maddening as hell. "Yeah, you too." She swallowed a surge of emotion and forced herself into command mode. "The others?" Quax surveyed the wreckage with a grim expression. "No signs. It is possible they were ejected on impact. Or worse." Alara exhaled, steadying herself. "Then it's just us for now. Come on. We need to scavenge supplies and build shelter before nightfall. We don't know what this planet holds." She turned toward the jagged horizon. Something about this place itched at her senses, not just the eerie silence or the scorched soil, but a weight in the air, as if they were being watched. Quax followed, limping. The atmospheric readings are unusual, magnetic interference, irregular seismic pulses. "It is almost as if the planet's alive," she finished. He raised an eyebrow. "That would be illogical." Alara smirked. "So is surviving a crash from orbit, but here we are." They found a clearing sheltered by black stone ridges and set to work. As they salvaged rations, medkits, and tools from the ruined ship, their differences crackled like static. She worked fast, intuitively. He moved with precision, calculating each step. Their first argument came over where to pitch the shelter. Hers was more defensible, his more stable. Neither relented. But by dusk, they had a place to sleep, even if it was barely more than a tarp over alloy struts. The temperature dropped fast, the sky turning violet and bruised. They sat near the flicker of a salvaged power lamp, silence stretching between them like a cold third presence. "You're not like other humans," Quax said abruptly. "Is that a compliment or a warning?" "A hypothesis." She snorted. "Well, you're not like other aliens either. Most don't have better grammar than my XO." He looked away, but she swore she saw a flicker of amusement in his golden eyes. Their breath clouded in the chill. Above them, the stars blinked back into view. Alara gazed up at the same constellations that had watched their descent, now distant and uncaring. "Tomorrow," she murmured, "we start scouting. Water, food, shelter, survival 101. Quax nodded. But neither of them noticed the faint tremor beneath their feet, nor the slow pulse of light deep within the planet's crust. Something was listening, and it had just woken up. The second day on Alpha 97 hit like a punch to the gut, literally and figuratively. The planet's sun had barely crept over the horizon when Alara jolted awake, the searing pain in her side a brutal reminder of the crash. Her uniform was scorched, the left shoulder torn where she'd scraped against twisted steel. She winced, sat up, and immediately regretted it. Everything ached. Across the blackened wreckage, Quax stood perfectly still, like a statue carved from green marble. He held a twisted panel in one hand, his expression unreadable. "You're up," he said, not turning. "Yeah," Alara muttered, rubbing her forehead. "Feels like I got thrown through an asteroid field and punched by gravity." Quax turned then. "That would be an accurate summary." "Thanks, Dr. Dry Humor," she grunted. He tilted his head. "I assumed sarcasm was your coping mechanism." "I assume being emotionally constipated is yours." A long pause. Then, was that a faint twitch at the corner of his mouth? Progress. They spent the morning combing through the remains of the Odyssey. The once grand ship now lay in pieces, its hull bent like folded paper, circuitry sparking weakly under the weight of collapsed corridors. There were no signs of the rest of the crew, just silence, empty escape pods, burn marks, a whole lot of, "We're probably on our own now." Alara pushed down the panic. She was captain. She didn't have the luxury of losing it. She turned to Quax. "We need food, water, shelter, and weapons, if this rock's got anything with teeth." Statistical probability of native predators, 93%. Awesome. Can't wait to meet the locals. Quax gave her a long, unreadable look. "You're remarkably functional for a human under duress." She blinked. "You just call me mentally stable? That's the highest compliment I've ever gotten from a Drenari." "I was referring to your adaptability." "Still counts." Together, they salvaged a power core fragment, a medical pack, and a solar distiller. By midday, the temperature had dropped sharply, and the wind howled across the broken landscape like a warning. "I'm not freezing my ass off out here," Alara muttered, shivering. "We need shelter. Now." They found a small rock overhang near the canyon's edge, and reinforced it with hull plating. It was crude, cold, and cramped, but it was a start. Inside, they sat in silence, wrapped in thermal blankets. The flickering emergency lantern cast uneven light over Quax's angular features. He was so alien, literally, but not in the monstrous way she'd always feared. His skin, though rough, had a shimmer to it. His eyes glowed faintly gold in the dark. She stared a moment too long. He noticed. "Is something wrong?" "No," she said quickly. "Just thinking." He was quiet, then spoke softly. "You fear we're the only survivors." Alara's throat tightened. "I don't want to believe that. But I'm trained for worst-case scenarios. And emotionally bracing for impact is your, what do you humans call it, default setting." She smirked. "Well, we did name our last exploration rover Perseverance." "Fitting." The silence stretched. Then Quax leaned forward, his voice low. "Captain, I would recommend we establish cooperative parameters." She raised a brow. "You mean a plan?" "I mean rules. For survival, duties, boundaries, decision-making hierarchy." She chuckled. "Oh, you're trying to make a friendship agreement." "Friendship is not required." She laughed harder. "You are so Drenari, it hurts." But she nodded. "Fine. We co-lead. Equal vote. If one of us goes nuts, the other takes charge. And if one dies?" Her smile faded. "Then the other keeps going. We don't give up. Deal?" Quax nodded. "Agreed." They shook hands, his fingers cool and textured against hers. For the first time since the crash, something in her chest loosened. That night, as the winds howled outside and their makeshift fire sputtered, Alara sat curled beneath a blanket, watching the flames. Quax sat beside her, silent but steady. "You miss your people?" she asked softly. Quax nodded. "My twin bondmate. Her last words before transmission loss were, 'Trust the stars.' I think of her often." Alara's chest tightened. "That's beautiful. I hope we make it back, for both of us." He looked at her, eyes gleaming. "And if we don't?" She hesitated, then met his gaze. "Then we survive here, together." For the first time, Quax smiled, a real one. Small, restrained, but real. "I believe that would be acceptable." They sat quietly, shoulder to shoulder. Two species, two survivors. One fragile alliance beginning to form in the shadow of catastrophe. And in that silence, something deeper than survival took root. The third morning after the crash, the silence was no longer deafening. It was just normal. Alara had stopped hoping for a rescue ship to appear on the horizon. Now she just hoped Quax wouldn't forget to boil the alien root before chewing on it. Apparently, uncooked, it caused hallucinations. "The more you know." "Report?" she asked, sitting up from her makeshift bed of insulation foam. Quax, ever composed, glanced up from a row of strange-looking pods he'd been dissecting. "I believe these contain nutritional spores, possibly edible, possibly explosive." "Right, so, lunch or boom," Alara muttered, rubbing her temples. Quax's lips twitched in what Alara was beginning to suspect might be his version of a smirk. "I suggest a small test portion." Together they sat by the fire. Well, not quite fire, more like chemically reacting moss that Quax had somehow rigged to emit warmth and light. Alara watched as he carefully cooked a sliver of the spore pod. She sniffed. "Smells like burnt rubber and disappointment." "Ah," he said, chewing thoughtfully. "Slightly tangy, texture of sponge, no internal combustion." Alara blinked. "That's promising." They both laughed, genuine, startled, short-lived laughter. It caught them off guard. For the first time since the crash, the weight pressing on Alara's chest lifted just a little. Maybe it was the spore. Maybe it was the moment. Either way, something shifted. Later that afternoon, while gathering more supplies, a sudden gust of wind swept through the canyon. Alara lost her footing on the rocky ledge. Her heart jumped to her throat. But before she could tumble, Quax's hand shot out, gripping her wrist with shocking strength. Their eyes locked, hers wide with shock, his golden and steady. "I've got you," he said. It wasn't just the words. It was the way he said them. Calm. Certain. Like it had never even occurred to him to let her fall. Back at the shelter, they didn't talk about it. Not directly. But their dynamic began to change. When Alara built a windshield out of salvaged solar panels, Quax didn't criticize the asymmetry. He reinforced the supports. When Quax constructed a rudimentary weather monitoring array, Alara didn't roll her eyes. She logged the data and added contingency plans. At night, when the alien stars painted the sky in strange constellations, they sat close, not huddled for survival, but beside one another, by choice. "We're adapting," Alara murmured one evening, staring into the light moss. "To the planet. To each other." Quax nodded. "Efficiency through familiarity. But it is more than that, isn't it?" Alara looked at him, her face illuminated by soft green light. "Yeah, it is." They didn't kiss. They didn't touch. But something stronger than physical closeness passed between them that night. The first real flicker of trust. And in that fragile alliance, in the awkward teamwork and hesitant understanding, they found it. Hope. The fire crackled softly in their modest shelter, casting long, dancing shadows on the curved metallic wall salvaged from the Odyssey's wreckage. Outside, Alpha 97 slumbered beneath a curtain of foreign stars, an alien sky that felt less hostile tonight. Alara Ward sat cross-legged, sharpening a piece of scavenged metal into a spearhead, but her eyes often drifted toward Quax, who was sitting a few feet away, adjusting a rudimentary environmental scanner. His green fingers moved with that same unshakable grace, deliberate, efficient, quiet. "Do you ever miss it?" she asked suddenly, her voice low. "Home?" Quax didn't look up at first. He merely hummed, a soft musical note. Then he set the scanner aside and turned to face her. His golden eyes glowed faintly in the firelight. "Dranar is silence and song. The ocean sings when it crashes against the cliffs. Our homes are carved into stone that has listened to the sea for thousands of years." Alara stopped sharpening. Something in his tone pulled at her, like he was trying to describe more than just geography. "That sounds peaceful," she murmured. "It is," he nodded. "But also lonely. Every sound has meaning. Dranari do not speak without purpose." He paused, then added with a rare smile, "Your kind speaks constantly. It is overwhelming, but also refreshing." Alara chuckled, tossing her spear aside. "Yeah, humans talk a lot, especially when we're nervous, or bored, or hungry, or—" Quax raised a hand, his grin widening just slightly. "I have noticed." The laughter that followed surprised them both. It was the kind of laugh that broke tension, not caused it. A laugh that didn't say we're stranded, but rather, we're here together. "So," Alara said, brushing a lock of soot-darkened hair from her forehead, "since we're oversharing tonight. I used to sneak out of the Space Academy dorms just to lie on the launch pad and watch the stars. I told them it was for astrogation training. Truth is, I just liked imagining I was already out there. Anywhere but Earth." Quax tilted his head. "You wish to escape your home?" Alara's expression softened. "Not escape, exactly. Earth has beauty, forests, oceans, art, but it's noisy, competitive. Always pushing you to be something more, faster, stronger. I guess I felt like I didn't belong." Quax's gaze lingered on her. "And yet, you became a captain." "Yeah," she whispered. "Eventually. But not because I wanted to command. I wanted to understand. Space made sense. People didn't." For a long moment, the fire was the only sound between them. Then, Quax stood and moved beside her, lowering himself to the ground with the same care he gave ancient machinery. "Do you know why I became a navigator?" he asked, not waiting for her reply. "I was afraid of the sea." Alara blinked. "You? Afraid?" "Deeply," he said. "The currents beneath our cliff cities are powerful, unpredictable. As a child, I once fell into the surf during a storm. I was rescued, but the ocean never stopped whispering warnings to me after that, so I turned my gaze upward. To the stars," she said. Quax nodded. "I couldn't control the ocean. But the stars, they were a map, fixed, knowable." Alara reached for her flask and offered it. He hesitated only briefly before taking it, his fingers brushing hers. There was a warmth there, unspoken but acknowledged. "We're not so different, you and I," she said. "No," he agreed, "not different. Just shaped by different elements." They sat in silence for a while, the kind that settles comfortably between people who no longer need to fill the void. It was Quax who broke it next. "I read once that humans value stories, that you build culture on them. More than you know," Alara smiled. "Our myths, our movies, our jokes, they're all stories. It's how we make sense of the chaos." Quax considered that. "On Drenar, we etch memory into the stone. Each family keeps a memory wall, generations of names, events, moments. It is less about the story and more about the echo it leaves behind." "That's beautiful," she said quietly. "I think humans could use a wall like that." "You have something similar," he replied, gesturing to her chest. "You carry your stories inside you, in your fire, your defiance." She looked at him then, really looked, and felt the gravity shift. This wasn't just an alien she'd crashed with. This was someone who'd peeled away layers of silence and smoke, someone who'd met her at the edge of her strength and didn't flinch. "I never thought I'd end up here," she said softly. "Neither did I," he answered. "But I'm glad I'm not alone." Quax extended his hand. "May I?" She hesitated, then took it. His fingers curled around hers, firm and warm. The contact sent a tremor through her, not of fear but of understanding. "You humans," he said, voice barely above a whisper. "You live so loud, but you love even louder." She laughed through the lump in her throat. "And you, Drenari, you feel so deep, it's like diving into a sea I never knew I needed." Quax's golden eyes held hers. "For what it's worth, Captain Ward," he said, "I am glad it was you." Their fingers tightened, and in the silence that followed, the stars above bore quiet witness, as two souls from opposite ends of the galaxy found something no map had ever charted: each other. Alpha 97 never gave warnings. The wind was still, the skies deceptively calm, until the ground split open like the planet had decided to devour them whole. It happened in a blink. One moment, Alara and Quax were gathering mineral samples along the ridge. The next, the earth roared, and a deep rumble shook the canyon beneath their feet. "Quax, don't move!" Alara shouted, but it was too late. The ledge crumbled beneath him. Dust and rocks exploded outward as his body dropped with the collapsing cliffside. His hand scrabbled at air. And then, Alara was there. She caught his wrist with both hands, her boots skidding against the fractured edge, knees buckling under the strain. "I got you," she yelled, her voice hoarse. "Just don't look down." Quax dangled over the abyss, his usually composed face twisted with something Alara had never seen before: fear. I'm slipping," he managed, his golden eyes wide. "No, you're not." Her fingers dug in, muscles burned. "Don't you dare let go. She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. With a raw scream and all the strength her body could summon, she hauled him upward, inch by painful inch, until they both collapsed on the jagged ground above, coughing and gasping for breath. For a long moment, neither moved. Dust clung to their sweat-slicked skin. Alara's hands were scraped raw, Quax's tunic was torn and bloodied. Then, "Thank you," Quax said quietly. Alara let out a shaky laugh, half-choked with relief. "You think I'd just let you fall? Please, I've invested too much in training you." He looked at her. Really looked. There was a change in his gaze, softened edges, unspoken awe. "You remind me," he said, "why I left Drenar in the first place. I thought emotion was inefficient, but you've proven otherwise." She froze. For all the battles, close calls, and barbed exchanges between them, this was different. This was raw. "I thought I was going to die down there," he said, voice lower now, trembling at the edges. "And my last thought wasn't of home. It was of you." The words hit like a shockwave. Alara's throat tightened. She wasn't used to hearing him speak like this, vulnerable, open. She wasn't used to anyone seeing through her armor. "I'm not losing you," she said, quieter now. "Not now. Not ever." Their hands met again, not as rescuer and rescued, not as soldier and navigator, but as something new, something fragile, something real. Later that night, as the fire crackled gently outside their shelter, Alara cleaned a cut on Quax's arm. Her hands shook, not from fear, but from how close they were, from how different everything felt now. "You cried when you pulled me up," Quax murmured, not quite a question. She snorted. "Nope, that was sand," in both eyes, simultaneously. He smiled faintly. Drenari medical texts describe emotional leakage from tear ducts under extreme stress or affection. Curious. She didn't laugh this time. Instead, she met his eyes and said, "I'll do it again. Cliff. Fire. Plasma storm. I'd pull you out of any of it." There was a beat of silence. Then Quax reached out, fingers brushing the edge of her jaw. "And I would do the same. For you." They sat in silence, hand in hand, the firelight flickering across their faces. No more hiding behind protocol. No more pretending they weren't scared. Or connected. Because something had changed on that cliff. They weren't just partners in survival anymore. They were something more. Quax didn't speak as they laid down beside the fire later, his shoulder touching hers. But the way he let her head rest on his arm, the way he stayed awake long enough to listen to the sound of her breath, said enough. Alara didn't speak either. But as she stared up at the alien stars, her fingers brushed his, and they stayed that way, wrapped in warmth and something stronger than either of them expected. Not love. Not yet. But the gravity that pulls stars into orbit had shifted, and they both felt it. The nights on Alpha 97 were never silent, even with no predators prowling near, even with the stars scattered like spilled diamonds across the sky. Something in the air always hummed, an ancient rhythm beneath the surface. That night, however, everything felt still, like the world was holding its breath. Alara sat near the fire, her knees pulled to her chest, gaze fixed on the dancing flames. The flicker cast golden light against her skin, softening the angular shadows of survival. Across from her, Quax adjusted a small piece of salvaged tech, trying to reroute its function into a beacon. But his fingers moved slower than usual. His mind, like hers, was somewhere else entirely. Neither had spoken much since the storm 3 nights ago, the one where she'd broken down in the cave, and he'd wrapped his arms around her as she wept into his chest. The air between them had shifted since then. Heavier, warmer, unspoken. "Quax," she said, her voice soft but steady. He looked up, his golden eyes luminous in the low firelight. "Yes, Captain." She smiled faintly at the title. "You can drop the captain when it's just us." A pause. Then he nodded. "Very well, Alara." Another pause. Longer. She exhaled, then reached into her pocket and pulled out a small pendant, a piece of earth tech, cracked but still glowing faintly. "This was from my sister," she said, her voice distant. "When I left for this mission, she told me, 'Don't fall for anyone on another planet, okay?'" Quax tilted his head, curious. "And yet, here you are." She looked at him then. Really looked. Past the alien skin, the unfamiliar physiology, the cultural rift. She saw the gentle steadiness in his eyes, the patience, the moments he had stepped between her and danger, the quiet way he made her feel seen, understood, human. "I've been trained not to feel things like this on missions," she said quietly. "It's against protocol, against logic. But every time you look at me, I feel like maybe rules don't matter so much out here." Quax's gaze softened. He set aside the device and moved to sit beside her, close but not touching. "On Drenar, we are taught that emotion is a frequency, like sound. It hums beneath everything. Deny it, and it grows louder." Alara turned to him, her heart thudding like war drums. "Then tell me, Quax, what's humming inside you right now?" Silence. Just the fire. Just the stars. Then he spoke, slowly, deliberately. "When I look at you, Alara, I feel something I do not have words for in any language I know. It's like gravity has changed, like you've become the center of my orbit." Her breath caught. "That's beautiful." He reached out, hesitating just a fraction before his fingers brushed hers. His touch was warm, tentative, but electric. "I do not understand everything about human emotion," he said, "but I want to. I want to understand you." Alara turned fully to face him, her fingers laced with his. Then let me show you. Their kiss was not a Hollywood explosion. It was slow, tentative, the kind that asked permission as it leaned in. His lips were warm, unfamiliar in texture, but gentle in pressure. Her heart pounded so loudly she was certain he could hear it. When they parted, he rested his forehead against hers. That was not unpleasant, he said, tone thoughtful. She laughed, breathless. You've got away with romance. I am still learning. Alara grinned and leaned in again. This time the kiss deepened. Their bodies inched closer, the tension coiling between them taut like a bowstring. His hand moved to the small of her back, pulling her gently against him. Her fingers trailed up his neck, into the soft silver strands of his hair. He pulled away just slightly. Are you sure? I'm not sure of anything, she whispered, except that I want you. They moved together with the awkward grace of first intimacy. His touch was reverent, as if learning her like sacred text. She explored the alien terrain of his body with equal awe, tracing lines and curves that didn't exist in any human anatomy book. Their clothes became a memory, discarded and forgotten. Skin to skin, breath to breath. They found rhythm not in perfection, but in discovery. Every sound, every gasp, every whisper was a new dialect of trust. When he entered her, it wasn't just physical. It was seismic, a shift, a crossing of thresholds. The universe had always seemed vast, unknowable. But in that moment, with his body against hers and the stars bearing witness, everything made sense. They weren't human and alien anymore. They were just two people who had found each other in the dark. Their climax was quiet, a shared exhale, a trembling surrender. After, they lay together, limbs tangled, hearts slowly settling. Alara rested her head on his chest, listening to the strange rhythm of his heartbeat. I didn't plan for any of this, she said. Neither did I, Quax replied. But I am grateful. She smiled against his skin. I think your people are right. Emotion is a frequency, and right now I think we're finally in tune. The soft hum of the alien scanner filled the cave like a whisper from the past. Alara crouched near a jagged panel embedded in the stone wall, brushing away centuries of dust with practiced fingers. The structure was far older than anything she'd seen in the Federation's archives, layered with etchings that shimmered faintly when touched. Behind her, Quax knelt beside a dormant control node, his fingers moving with careful precision. There's power here, he murmured, his golden eyes narrowing. Faint, but alive, like an ember waiting to breathe. Alara glanced back. You're telling me this thing still works after who knows how many centuries? I'm telling you it wants to, he said cryptically, the corner of his mouth tugging upward in that dry, understated smile she was starting to find devastatingly charming. The air between them held a buzz that wasn't just electrical. The intimacy of last night lingered in the smallest gestures, the way their shoulders brushed when they worked side by side, the casual touches that once felt alien now grounding them. And yet, they were back in survival mode. This forgotten ruin might be their only chance off this planet. All right, Captain, Quax said, standing. This is some kind of transmitter. Ancient, sophisticated. Not Drenari, not human. But it speaks in harmonics, resonance-based interface. I think we can make it sing. Alara tilted her head. How loud can we make it sing? He held up a rusted power coupler with a spark of triumph in his eyes. Loud enough to reach a few light years, if we can wake it fully. She exhaled. Then let's do it. Together. Together. That word no longer felt like a necessity. It felt like a choice. They worked in sync, falling into a rhythm. She scavenged components from their old wreckage while Quax rerouted power through coils that pulsed like glowing veins. Hours passed unnoticed, the silence between them punctuated only by quiet commands and the crackle of energy rising. Are you sure this ancient tech won't fry us into cosmic toast? Alara asked, eyeing the humming panel warily. Statistically, Quax said, squinting at a waveform scanner, there is only a 12% chance of catastrophic self-immolation. Alara gave him a look. That's your idea of comforting? His smile widened. You seem to enjoy danger. She smirked, tossing him a thermal regulator. Keep talking like that and I might start thinking you're flirting again. He caught it one-handed. And if I am? Their eyes met, and for a moment, time slowed again. But then the machine behind them gave a low, throbbing whoom, and a sudden light burst from the walls, illuminating symbols that began shifting, aligning. It's working, Quax said, voice tight with excitement. but the ground trembled beneath them. Alara steadied herself against the wall. Was that supposed to happen? No, Quax said, voice suddenly grim. I think we triggered something defensive. A sharp shriek echoed through the chamber, not mechanical, but alive. Alara spun around. From the far shadows of the cave, something slithered, a guardian, awakened from slumber, a mass of metal and sinew, ancient and predatory. Back! She shouted, drawing her plasma knife. The creature lunged. Quax stepped between her and the beast without hesitation, arm raised, repulsor gauntlet flaring to life. The energy blast struck the guardian squarely. It reeled back, but not for long. It's adapting, he shouted. We need to disable the source before it fully activates. I'll distract it. You kill the beacon. Alara darted sideways, catching the beast's attention. Come on, you metallic nightmare. She led it on a wild chase across the chamber, weaving through columns and leaping over fallen stone. Quax didn't waste a second. He dropped to his knees near the control core, pulled a scorched panel loose, and began rerouting the system manually. Sparks flew. The Guardian roared. Now, Quax! Alara yelled, pinned against a column, the creature looming. He slammed the final connection home. The entire cave shook, then pulsed with a blinding light. The Guardian froze mid-strike, its limbs twitching before collapsing in a heap of ancient parts. Silence returned. Only the transmitter remained active, its beacon stretching up into the sky, a steady, silent scream into the stars. Breathless, Alara walked over to Quax and collapsed beside him. 12%, huh? He chuckled, his hand finding hers. Always a chance. Their fingers interlaced. She leaned against him, letting the adrenaline fade. We sent the signal? He nodded. It's out there. Someone will hear it. And if they don't? He looked at her then, really looked, eyes fierce with a different kind of certainty. Then I'll keep building, with you, until the stars answer. Alara let the silence settle, her heart racing in a different way now. They weren't just surviving anymore. They were building a future. Together. The first signs were subtle. Alara had been waking up with an odd queasiness, her balance slightly off. At first, she chalked it up to stress, alien gravity, or maybe even the after effects of the crash. But when she felt a flutter, no, a distinct ripple, in her lower abdomen, panic shot through her like a lightning bolt. She sat up in their makeshift bed, pressing a hand to her belly. Quax, she called, her voice trembling. He was reviewing the scan data from the ancient structure, but the urgency in her tone made him rise immediately. What is it? I think something's wrong with me. Or maybe not wrong, just different. Her eyes met his, wide with confusion. I need your scanner, now. Quax fetched the portable bioscanner without a word. He knelt beside her and activated it, passing the device gently over her abdomen. The scanner beeped, processing. Then it emitted a soft, rising tone. He froze. No, it can't be, he whispered. Alara grabbed his arm. What? What is it? He turned the scanner so she could see. The screen showed a small, pulsing shape, an unfamiliar but unmistakable signature, a heartbeat. Two distinct DNA patterns intertwined in the center, one human, one Drenari. You're pregnant, Quax said softly. With hybrid. Alara blinked, the weight of his words crashing into her chest like a meteor. That's not possible, she whispered. We're not even from the same species. I agree, he murmured, stunned. But the scan is clear. Your body has adapted. It's sustaining it. Alara stood, backing away, her breathing uneven. I don't understand. We didn't even think. You didn't plan it, Quax said, rising. But neither did I. This wasn't supposed to happen. And yet. They stood in silence. The hum of alien winds outside their shelter was the only sound between them. Alara finally sank onto a nearby crate, her hands shaking. This changes everything. Quax approached slowly, kneeling in front of her. Do you want it? He asked gently. We have time. If this is not something you... No, she said quickly, cutting him off. Her voice was raw, filled with awe and fear. I don't know how to feel. He reached for her hand, clasping it in both of his. Then feel everything, all of it. You don't have to be strong right now, Alara. You just have to be honest. She looked down at his alien fingers wrapped around hers, so different from her own. And yet, there was comfort in his touch, familiarity. A strange, fierce warmth began to bloom in her chest. We created life, she whispered. On a hostile, desolate planet after a crash, we somehow made something new. That shouldn't even be possible. Maybe it's not science, Quax said. Maybe it's something more. Alara gave a shaky laugh through the tears now threatening to fall. Don't tell me the logical, by-the-book Quax is turning romantic on me. He smiled, something rare and beautiful on his normally stoic face. Only for you. Their foreheads touched, his cool skin pressing gently against her flushed one. What do we even call something like this? She asked, voice low. A miracle, he replied. And for the first time since they'd crashed on Alpha 97, the fear that had lived in Alara's chest began to dissolve. Not because the future was certain, it wasn't, but because in the middle of all this wreckage and chaos, they had found a spark of something extraordinary. Not just survival, creatio. The signal had been out for 5 days. Every night Alara sat just outside the ancient facility, one hand on her stomach, the other gripping the sidearm she hadn't needed in weeks. The stars above blinked with indifference, and Quax, never far from her, sat in focused silence beside her, his golden eyes sweeping the sky. Then, on the 6th day, everything changed. The sky tore open. A ripple of light shimmered like a veil being pulled back, and from it emerged the unmistakable silhouette of a rescue cruiser, sleek, silver, and bearing the Earth Alliance insignia. Alara bolted upright. They got it, she whispered. They got our signal. Quax placed a steadying hand on her shoulder, but even his composed expression cracked with emotion. They came. As the ship descended, Alara felt a tremor ripple through the ground. Dust kicked up around them, and her heart thundered. This was it. Rescue. Salvation. But as the hatch opened and uniformed humans stepped out, armed, armored, alert, Alara's joy faded into wariness. She recognized Commander Drake among them, her former superior, and saw the suspicion in his eyes as he scanned Quax beside her. Captain Ward, he barked. By all reports, you were presumed dead. Well, she said, arms crossed over her growing belly. I got better. His gaze dropped to her stomach, then back to Quax. What exactly happened here? Before she could answer, another ship descended, sleek and dark blue, Drenarian design. Quax stiffened. Zarexan diplomatic vessel, he murmured. They must have received the signal too. The air thickened with tension as both delegations stood on opposite sides, staring at the impossible couple before them, a human woman, an alien man, and the life they had created. Then, Alara stepped forward, not hiding, not apologizing. She reached for Quax's hand and raised it, her voice ringing clear in the hush. This isn't a scandal, she said. This isn't contamination. It's a new beginning. Drake frowned. You broke protocol, Captain. I broke nothing, she snapped. I survived, I adapted, and I found something worth more than any regulation. Quax added, calm and unwavering. We didn't just find love. We found what happens when two civilizations stop fearing each other. Silence. Then, from the Earth crew, a medic approached cautiously. May I scan the child? Alara hesitated. Quax gave a small nod. The medic ran the scanner, his eyes widened. The hybrid's stable, developing at an accelerated rate. This shouldn't even be genetically possible, and yet, here it is. He turned to Drake. Sir, this could be the scientific discovery of the century. On the Drenarian side, a diplomat stepped forward. We would like to open discussions on interspecies alliance, based on this. Everyone turned to look at Alara and Quax again, not with suspicion now, but awe. The couple stood together, proud and unyielding, living proof that fear could be replaced with love. A few days later, the scene looked very different. In Earth's orbital embassy, a ceremony was held, broadcast across dozens of planets. Alara wore a flowing navy uniform tailored to her new shape, while Quax stood beside her in ceremonial Drenarian garb. Drake himself stepped forward and cleared his throat. Today, we honor not only the survival of two brave explorers, he said, but the beginning of something larger than any of us. Captain Ward and Navigator Quax have reminded us what it means to be human, and what it means to be more. The room erupted in applause. On the monitors across the galaxy, headlines bloomed. First human-alien hybrid confirmed. Love among the stars. Hope, born on Alpha 97. Alara turned to Quax, tears stinging her eyes. We did it, she whispered. He reached up, brushing her cheek with a tenderness that made her heart ache. We started with survival, but ended up rewriting history. She smiled, placing his hand over her belly. Then let's make sure our child grows up knowing exactly what we fought for. Under the gaze of stars that had once watched their struggle, now they bore witness to something far rarer: peace, unity, a love that transcended worlds, and the beginning of a legacy. The stars stretched endlessly beyond the panoramic glass of the orbital station, but Alara wasn't looking at them. Her gaze was fixed on the infant in her arms, wrapped in a soft, iridescent blanket that shimmered like the seas of Dranar. She was perfect. A soft coo escaped the child's lips, her skin a warm hue somewhere between Alara's golden tan and Quax's soft emerald. Her eyes, barely open, flashed with the violet flecks that matched her father's gaze, and the stubborn lift of her brow was all Alara. "She's going to be trouble," Alara whispered with a tired but radiant smile. From behind her, arms circled gently around her waist. Quax rested his chin on her shoulder, his voice calm and reverent. "Then she will be unstoppable." They stood in quiet awe for a while, the hush of the nursery broken only by the faint humming of the station's systems and the steady breathing of their daughter. The weight of all they had endured hung in the silence, but now it was just a whisper. The storm had passed. "She's the first of her kind," Alara murmured. "And yet holding her, it all feels so natural." Quax nodded, "Because what we built is real. It wasn't born of protocol or diplomacy or chance. It came from us choosing one another again and again." A soft chime sounded from the door. It opened to reveal Commander Drake, no longer in uniform, but in civilian attire, holding a data pad. His stern expression had softened over the past few months. "Sorry to intrude," he said gently. "The delegation is ready whenever you are." Alara exchanged a look with Quax. No words needed. She turned back to her daughter and pressed a soft kiss to her forehead. "We'll be right back, Starlight." Minutes later, they stood before a sea of beings, humans and aliens alike, gathered in the grand hall of Unity Station. News cameras floated silently overhead. This was more than a press conference. It was a promise. Alara stepped up to the podium, her voice steady, her presence commanding. "We crashed on Alpha 97. We survived. We found each other, and against all odds, we fell in love." She let that hang in the air. Some called it scandal, others called it impossible. But I say it's proof. Proof that the universe isn't meant to divide us, but to challenge us to grow, to reach, to evolve. Together. The crowd was silent, spellbound. Quax joined her at the podium, placing his hand gently over hers. "From this love," he said, "came life. A daughter who carries the spirit of Earth and the soul of Dranar. She is not an accident. She is a bridge." The lights dimmed. A hollow screen illuminated behind them, an image of their daughter, smiling in her sleep. A single tear rolled down Alara's cheek. "She is our legacy," she said, "and our hope." The crowd rose in a standing ovation. Applause thundered across the hall, across the station, across the stars. Later that evening, they returned to the nursery. No cameras, no speeches, just the three of them. Quax lay beside Alara, their daughter between them. Tiny fingers grasped his larger ones. He looked at Alara. "Where do we go from here?" She smiled softly. "Anywhere, everywhere." "We've already been through the worst," he said. "Now," she replied, "we get to live the best." And as the station drifted silently through the cosmos, bathed in the light of distant suns, the first hybrid child of two worlds slept peacefully between her parents, unaware that she was history in the making. But someday, she would know. That love, strange, fierce, improbable love, had changed the universe forever.